And action. What up, YouTube? This is John Bailey giving you a review or my first impressions of my newly purchased Kimber 1911 Rapide in 45. I picked up this handgun about 2 months ago at my local Bass Pro gun shop in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And there wasn't a lot of information about it online, so I thought I would make a video giving you my first impressions of this handgun. A little disclaimer, I am in no shape, form, or fashion a weapons expert, so please take anything that I say with a grain of salt and excuse any mistakes I might make around terminology and all of this other stuff. I'm not sitting here trying to be some type of YouTube handgun guru or presenting myself as such. Before we begin, let's walk through the standard safety precautions, demonstrating that this weapon is not loaded, and remove the magazine. So, Kimber 1911 Rapide. I really like this handgun for a number of different reasons, and we're going to go over a few of those. So first off, aesthetically, I think that this is one of the finer production handguns I have seen in a while, and I've seen a lot of them from different manufacturers over the years. This handgun has some very unique features to it and just kind of design layouts, beginning with the cutouts that you see both here on the side as well on the top. Kimber states that those cutouts are designed to assist with the slide action, and I'd imagine that it helps to kind of reduce the overall weight of the handgun by a few ounces as well, which is never a bad thing, especially when you're talking about a 1911, which typically is pretty heavy. They have these little cutouts on the side. I've heard people refer to them as popsicle sticks, and that pattern is repeated again here at the rear of the slide. Both assist with kind of racking the slide back and forth, and they do work very well in assisting with that. That same popsicle stick pattern you'll see is repeated here on the grips, and also, oddly enough, here on the rear of the grip or handle of the firearm. The firearm also has kind of like this, it's kind of hard to see, but it's kind of like a dual gray, or maybe that is a little bit. We have some Cera coating here, and it has kind of like this cross contrast with the non-Cera coated sections of the handgun throughout, especially around the trigger well, and again on the grip. Speaking of the grip, there's also some really cool dimpling right there to help kind of shore up your grip. That dimpling is also repeated also on the side grips in between where the popsicle designs are right here in the rear, and then also these reducing rectangle style design right here, okay? There is also True Glow sights both on the rear and the front of the handgun. The rear has cutouts on the top that really help with seeing these in the daytime, especially if the sun is kind of beaming down on top. It kind of makes the back glow a little bit more brighter. In the front, there's also green day glow sight, but it also is highlighted with this little orange here, high vis orange, to make it more visible when lining up your sight. I have probably put maybe at least 1,000 rounds through this handgun to really kind of make sure that it was worth the price of admission, and I can say, at least for myself, that it really is. This weapon fired every single time, didn't jam up once. There was no issues at all with the handgun. And again, I fired easily 1,000 rounds through it before I cleaned it, and I actually just cleaned it today for the first time. So it's really performed well. It also has a, the magazine well is kind of flared, so it helps with kind of, pick up the magazine. You gotta look for it, fight for it, just kind of goes right in. Speaking of the magazine, it comes with one Kimber magazine, 8-round magazine. And, I've heard a lot of, different opinions about Kimber magazines. Some people like them, some people hate them. This magazine hasn't caused me any problems at all. Loads ammunition extremely well, and puts the ammo up into the chamber extremely well. Again, like I said, I had no problems with this magazine. Another thing, the gun is ambidextrous. It has a safety on both sides. You can see I'm pushing the safety up on this side, and you can see it's moving up on the opposite side. There's also, if you look closely at the trigger, you have kind of like a V-cut. Let me see if I can do that. Yeah, there you go, like a V-cut design. I think that's from an aesthetic point of view. It's kind of weird because you've got all these other cool design features that kind of like lend themselves and kind of complement each other. And then all of a sudden you got this weird kind of like Sergio Valente looking. That's what it reminds me of. Old Sergio Valente clothes designer type of trigger design. But besides that, the trigger itself is really cool. It has a short travel distance till you hit the wall. And when you kind of squeeze the trigger, it really just, it's maybe 5-pound trigger at the most, maybe 4.5. Overall, the gun, like I said, has performed extremely well for me. There are a couple of minor issues that I did encounter with the gun. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. First, starting with the grips. The grips on either side have these 2 little screws, and over time, the screws were loosening, and I was starting to hear like this rattling. And I was like, what is this? And I immediately noticed that these screws were kind of like vibrating loose. So I'm probably going to put some blue Loctite on it, the type that you can, the serviceable Loctite, just to kind of keep it down. I don't anticipate changing the grips. I like the grips. I think that they go very nice with the flow of the gun, and clearly they were built into the overall design. So I wouldn't be looking to change it, and I don't know that I could upgrade it to something that would make it look as good as it already does. Similarly, on the magazine well, the flared magazine well, you'll see this single screw right here. This screw actually fell out at the gun range that I was at one day when firing the gun. And luckily for me, it fell right into the ammo tray that's like kind of like right on the deck of the lane that I was shooting in. And it was only after I went to reload that I noticed this screw. I was like, where's this screw from? But I picked it up, and because it kind of, the finish of the screw was similar to my gun, I immediately started looking over at the gun, and sure as enough, that was missing from right there. So, I just went, got a hex, tightened it up, and was back in business. But that's something that you're probably going to want to think about if you do purchase this handgun, is, to kind of put some blue Loctite or something there, or just kind of tighten them down on your own here and torque them a little bit and give them a little bit more catch when you pick it up. Another issue that I discovered with the handgun, and it's one that I did see online from another YouTube video, has to do with the finish, which I absolutely love. Let me just say that. But on the Cerakote, you can see, let me see about right here, if you can, there's like a little nick. You can see that little nick right there. I think that maybe when some brass came out of the injection port, maybe bounced off the wall, came back in here and nicked the this side of the firearm. Similarly, though, it's also occurred right there. And I mentioned that I recently cleaned the gun today, and there's a little one right here. That is my fault from rotating this pen back and forth. But also, if you look closely down at the front, you'll see just a little wear right here. Now, that's not a lot, but what is a lot is the damn cost of this gun. And I would think that that Cerakote would be on a little bit harder. And, you know, I'm familiar with the Cerakote process, and it's really kind of like a hard process. Like, you don't see good Cerakoting like this scratching, you know what I mean? Just from like especially like here in the front. This is probably from me just putting it back and forth into the holster, but I don't know. But certainly on these other sides right here, these little nicking. Now I've seen a couple of other videos where the individuals showed that their Cerakote was like flaking off. Like they were able to take their fingernail and just like literally flake it off. And to Kimber's credit, according to those individuals, they contacted Kimber. Kimber said, send us some pictures. They sent the pictures. Kimber sent them a postage paid label. They sent it to Kimber, and within like, I want to say 2 weeks, both of those individuals whose video I saw said that they got it back from Kimber, and the gun was returned, and it looked completely brand new. And if not for the serial numbers, they would have sworn that the guns were brand new guns, like they just sent them brand new guns. And I actually submitted a question to one of them and asked, how has the new Cerakoting held up? Guy said zero issues. So my hope is that this Cerakoting will hold up and not get any worse than what it is now. If it does, I too will be contacting Kimber, requesting that they, look at the Cerakoting and correct that, because I think for a handgun of this price, and I'll just put, I don't think I mentioned the price. The ticket price was $14.99, and I want to say with tax, it was around about $1,600. So certainly not the most expensive handgun you can buy, but certainly not the cheapest as well. And I would expect, especially with a company like Kimber, who has a pretty decent reputation for handgun manufacturing, that wouldn't be a problem. All right. So accuracy, right out the box, super accurate handgun. The recoil on it is really nice, almost non-existent, kind of what one would expect with a heavy steel frame handgun with a 5-inch barrel. What I like about it also is that it's very thin. It's very thin, and I've carried this thing. I never thought that I would carry a 5-inch barrel handgun, quite frankly. I typically carry like a Glock 19 or something like that. This handgun, I mean, you can't discount having a good holster, but I use just a basic standard leather outside the waistband holster, and this thing rides really nice. Like, I started carrying this thing more than I carry my Glock or any other handgun that I own. And I feel kind of bad sometimes about doing that, because I'm like, this is, I mean, look at this thing. This is almost like a Shogun, really, like something that you just, you kind of bring to the range once in a while, and, you go through a couple of magazines, and you put it back up in the shelf for 6 more months or something like that. Not something that you would want to, be your daily carrier. I gotta tell you, I really like carrying this handgun. All right, so again, like I said, I am not an expert when it comes to handguns by any stretch of the imagination, but I did want to share my impressions of this handgun, the Kimber 1911 Rapide that I just purchased simply because I hadn't seen a lot of information online about it, videos in particularly, and just kind of wanted to give a layman's impression of this handgun for those of you that are interested in it and may be thinking about purchasing it. And hopefully something you heard here will help assist you in making that decision. All right, so take care, stay safe out there, and happy shooting. Peace.